Welcome to Live Reality Games. My name is Steven, and I'm here today to do another deep dive interview for Survivor BC The Golden Age. Today, we are talking to the runner-up and the second place, the one, the only, the William Elliott, or Will Elliott himself. Will, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Steven, how about you?
I'm doing fine. Did you? I don't know. I've been excited because Survivor BC Season 6's trailer just dropped the other day, and it's been exciting. I'm very stoked to see that come to light of day.
I did. I saw that the other day too, so it was nice to see that some of the editing is going or moving along, and
Mhm.
we'll see some new episodes soon.
And now you can kindly watch Taylor St. Louis's game in detail. All these players you got to interact with from my season, which I
That's
think it
right.
was just Taylor was from my season, right?
I think she's the only one from six, or
Yeah.
yeah, I think so.
I should know this, shouldn't I? I think Taylor's the only one. I'm pretty sure Taylor's the only one. Anyhow, so how have you been since your season?
Pretty good. I've had a bit of time off work, so it's been a mixture of work and enjoying the remaining days of summer.
Mhm.
Some days just getting lazy at home, some days getting stuff done around the house, other days bringing the kids out different places and doing stuff with them. So yeah, just trying to make the most of the last bunch of days here that we have left. But we've had a bit of a heat advisory the last week, so we've been stuck inside. I've had this week off, but we've been stuck inside most of the time. So
Well, I know definitely reaching the end of a game, and once it finishes, there's a lot of thoughts that are going through your head, and it can take a while to like really process them. Have you felt that way for this?
yeah, obviously you kind of think back to the different parts of the game that
Mhm.
you could have done differently, or you could have done better, or you would have liked to have done differently. And then you think back on the experience too. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, a single day hasn't passed where I haven't thought about the week in BC multiple times for whatever reasons I need to think of it.
Mhm. Well, getting back to the origins, so you have played a variety of orgs, correct?
Yeah, I've played a few different orgs over the last couple of years.
How did you get into that?
I was on some page looking for. I think it was when I was trying to watch international versions of Survivor, like the Australian version, the South African version, and I saw a link on whatever page it was I viewed this stuff on to an org page, and I applied. I got cast, and then once I was cast in the game, I realized, like, oh my god, I can't believe how big this community actually is. Like, probably tens of thousands of people branched out over these different communities all across the world. So that was just just kind of by chance, just when I was just watching international versions of Survivor, I came across a link to a page, and then just all downhill from there, really.
So how did you end up finding out about Survivor BC?
I didn't know about it at all until this summer. I've known about different versions that are played in the States. Some of the bigger ones like Real Foot and Live to Give, just from knowing people within the org community that have played on them.
Mhm.
So I was watching somebody that I know in the org community play on Real Foot. I think it was in June that was airing,
Mhm.
and I just got really jealous. I was like, God, I wish I could do something like this. Like, I was just so jealous of these people that get to do something, especially like we haven't got to do anything for the last year and a half. So I looked up to see if there was something in Canada. I found the Survivor BC page. I was kind of worried that maybe I was applying late, but I sent everything off, and Jaira sent me an email a couple days later, and a few days after that, I was all set to go to BC within a couple of weeks.
So how did you prepare for the game, or was there anything you did to prepare before going out there?
Not very much. I had all these delusions of grandeur of different things I think I was going to do, but really, the only thing I really did was kind of just prepared to be hungry.
Mhm.
Um, I just tried to snack less throughout the day and at night. Uh, just to show how much I snack, or I have been snacking. Just in the 2 weeks that I was doing that, I lost 6 pounds, and I think that's the only thing that I was doing differently. I think I didn't have any beer in the house, but we probably went out for dinner like 4 times still, and I would have beers when we go for dinner. So I don't think that I really did much else differently. I tried to go for a run one day. That didn't really go that well. And then I kind of just figured, when I get out there, I know I'm not going to be the most athletic guy anyway. So why bother trying to become athletic in the next 3 weeks?
Mhm. Was there anything you wish in retrospect you had done to prepare?
I wish I had actually, tried to run more and tried to get better But I mean, yeah, I had such little time because it was pretty much just a month in between when Jairo told me that he wanted me to play and when the game was starting. So um, I don't know. Like I didn't really have any time to do much else anyway.
So how did you go into the game? Did you have an idea of how you wanted to play?
Not really. I kind of felt like I needed to wait until I would see like who I was tribed up with. So then, like, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of when I would need to pick my strategy based on the genders, the ages, any shared interests, that type of thing. So I didn't really have any sort of set plan going into it. I don't think I played the way that I did end up playing. It was not how I was expecting at all to end up playing. Kind of a straight, narrow, honest game for the most part. I think I kind of had these ideas in my head that I would go out there and be more devious, and that kind of shone through a few times, but for the most part, it didn't what I was planning to go out there and do.
Why do you think you didn't end up playing that way?
I think it just kind of fell into that situation. There was times early in the game where, when CJ was going out and when Kevin was going out, and I knew they were going out, and I would have conversations with them, and the line, to them just kind of came naturally. And so I think I would have done a really good job continuing forward with that. But I think we kind of just, when I got to the merge, I had this thing going with Stevie and Austin where I basically had told them when I was over on their tribe before I mutinied that we would try to help each other, and if we couldn't, I would just tell them. I would tell you, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And that's how the merge kind of started for me, was just being honest with these people. Like, I can't do anything for you. We're both pretty nice. And then I just kept going with that strategy, I guess. It seemed to work. I mean, it never left me as the next person to be targeted, I felt like.
So you fly from Ontario to British Columbia. In Survivor BC, you get to sit blindfolded for maybe an hour or two. I don't know how long you got to sit there blindfolded. And eventually, the blindfolds are off and you see the people around you. What were your thoughts when you looked at your cache the first time?
I could tell immediately that I was probably the oldest person there, which I was expecting. And I mean, I didn't recognize anybody. I didn't know anybody from any type of any other online community. I recognized Taylor and Jess because we got picked up at the airport together the night before. That was it. So it was just it was just kind of interesting to see everybody and size everybody up right away.
Because I think you were the oldest person in the cast. Did that change how you wanted to approach the players or what you wanted to
do? Not really. I guess the only thing I wanted to make sure, because when I looked at previous seasons, and there was a few people, I think there's a few women that were older than I was that have played. So I kind of had an idea that I'd probably be the oldest person. I just wanted to make sure I didn't seem weak. I never wanted to be like the first or second one out dropping out of challenges, that type of thing. That was the only thing that I had in mind as far as my age goes. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to show my age, basically, because I'm not really in shape at all.
Well, so you get divvied up in the tribes, and you are on the red tribe, the Kwantlen tribe, and you have an interesting tribe. Each tribe has 3 returning players. Actually, let's first ask about this. There are 6 returning players in the 16-person cast. Each tribe ends up with 3 returning players. You have Taylor St. Louis, Andrew, and Kevin. Both Andrew and Kevin played together in the previous season. Did you have any initial thoughts of what you do with the returning players?
I wanted to link up with them. I know a lot of people, whether it's the actual TV version of the game or in this game itself, people were kind of against the returning players being there, but I saw them as being helpful, especially at the start of the game when you don't know what to expect as far as what's usually done the first night, what's usually done the first morning, what the tree mail could be hinting at for like similar challenges that have been done in the past. So I was happy to have them there. I mean, they really did nothing but benefit us, I thought. So.
Well, talk to me about your tribe, because you have those 3 players mentioned earlier. Then you also have Jamie, CJ, and Braden S. and Evelyn on your tribe with you.
Yeah, when we first got tribed up, I was happy to see Jamie there. Jamie had his Hawaiian shirt on, his sunglasses, his fancy hat. So as soon as I saw Jamie, I knew like this guy's going to be the social center of the group. This is the guy that I want to link up with for sure because he's going to have the connections with everybody. Um, and then as far as everybody else goes, I kind of I just tried to do what I could with everybody. I felt like I had something going with CJ already because I was the first one to arrive at the site for the game, and then CJ was second. So then they blindfolded us. But the time that when we got to look at each other from a distance, it was kind of like we're looking at each other and smiling, and I'm trying to give a secret thumbs up and stuff like that. So I was happy to see that he was on my tribe. Taylor, I had driven with from the airport. Jaira picked us up the day before. We didn't really get to talk very much. He put the radio on really, really loud. I think that was purposely. We couldn't talk. And then I had seen from viewing previous seasons that Kevin and Andrew had a bit of a connection. So I knew, looking at those two, you kind of already see them as a pair. At least at the start, they would probably kind of link together. So I just tried to do something with everybody. Everybody had their advantages to link up with.
So you have this opening reward challenge for your luggage because you learn that you're not getting a sleeping bags that first night. This is steal the bacon, but with your luggage. How did this go for you?
It went quite well for me. I won both of my rounds. I don't know. I mean, I suffered that first night. I don't know how I would have done if I didn't have jogging pants and a hoodie. Because that's what I was wearing. I had jogging pants and a hoodie, and I just lied on my t-shirt, and I just lied on the dirt and shivered all night until the sun came up. So those people that were, we pretty much cleaned up with Kwantlen. So the folks that were on Semyam that didn't have their stuff, I felt so bad for them after that first night. Knowing how bad it was for me, I couldn't imagine how bad it was for some of them.
So your tribe dominates this open reward challenge, and really, you don't really have anything else happening the rest of the night. You already mentioned that you had probably the worst nights of Survivor BC history that first night, but did anything else go on, or do you have any conversation with people that very first opening day?
That rest of that first day, no. And I thought the one thing going into the game is that I wanted to be self-aware was when I watched my friend on Realfoot, she has a very good social game online, and then I could see at the start she struggled with that.
Lydia?
And in real life, we're just both very introverted, as opposed to our online gaming personas or whatever you would say. So I was very self-aware going into the game of not doing that. And I thought that I wasn't doing that, but I think I still did when I kind of heard some stuff from friends when I came home from them watching the streams. But it wasn't until like the second day where I actually had some kind of game talk with somebody. But that first day, I thought I was watching everybody. I was making sure if people were going off, as a group, I was going with them. Nobody really that I noticed paired off to the water, just two people. And I don't know when people had the chance to whisper to each other, but people obviously did.
So after that first night, the next day, you start with a couple of immunity challenges, but reward challenges. Before that, you learn that there is this Island of the Ages, and each tribe needs to send one person to the island, and you don't know what's going on. And your tribe ends up choosing Taylor. Talk to me about your thoughts around this.
Yeah, we chose. Was it we chose Taylor? Or is it how it went?
And you chose Taylor for the opening one.
I can't remember I think we just drew straws for that one. I think maybe on the first one, or drew sticks, the short stick. I can't remember how we decided that one. That was so early in the game that I think it was just so inconsequential to everything. But the concept of the Island of the Ages was obviously interesting, not knowing, especially this is the first time somebody was going. So we didn't know if it was going to be a detriment to us or a detriment to Taylor. Is Taylor going to suddenly have to switch tribes? We didn't know what it was. So at that point, it was still very unassuming. We didn't know what was going to happen.
Taylor ends up coming back, and she tells you that she competed against Stevie in a challenge, and that he ended up winning, and she doesn't know what he won. Was there any doubt in Taylor, or what were your thoughts on what her story she was telling you?
I didn't doubt her, and I think for me it was just kind of I feel like it's stupid to lie to everybody that early in the game. Even if she had won an idol, I think it's just kind of a stupid thing to do. And I think she's a smart enough player. She's played this a couple of times. I think she's played various other non-survivor LRGs as well. Like she knows not to
Mm-hmm.
play that wild right at the start. So I didn't have any doubts as to what she had told us.
Mm-hmm. So you end up having 2 reward challenges. And this first challenge, it's a survivor mixer, where everyone has the box, the items in, and your tribe wins this reward and gets sleeping bags from it.
Yes, quite happy for that because I don't know if I could have. I don't know what would happen second night in the dirt, and I think that second night was colder as well. So we were very happy to win our sleeping bags.
And then
we at that point we didn't know that Stevie had won sleeping bags for the other tribe in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we were all kind of going to bed that night thinking like laughing. Feel bad now saying we were laughing, but laughing at the other tribe thinking that they didn't have sleeping bags again for a second night, but they actually won them before we did.
Your tribe ends up losing the next reward challenge, but it's a reward challenge, right? Is it anything about? I think it was the Precious Stones challenge.
Yeah, that was it a pizza reward or something like that?
Probably.
I don't know. I know those first couple of days we did not win any food rewards at all, and it was killing us. I mean, like I would have just, even if they just gave us like a carrot or something or a cucumber like to bite into, I would have been happy with that.
Well, talk to me about the food situation in your tribe, right? Because there are the BC Bucks, and you all can gather those, and you can get like Lee's granola bars or beef jerky and stuff like that. There is some food available out there.
Yeah, so we had a bag of Jack Link's beef jerky, and then we had two those like rolls of saltine crackers.
Mm-hmm.
Because we won the first challenge, we won extra food, so we won an extra sleeve of saltine crackers. And then with the minimal amount of BC Bucks we were finding, or at least the minimal amount of BC Bucks that people were saying they found, yeah, we had some bag of some dry ass granola that we bought, and we bought some more beef links. Like I can't eat beef jerky again. I don't think, just the texture and the dryness of it when you're already like you haven't eaten anything all day. It was on the third day. All we had eaten was like a handful of this awful granola in the morning, and I had seen somebody. I guess they can't kick me out now. I'd seen somebody left some barbecue sauce kind of somewhere, like a production member left some barbecue sauce off somewhere. So I brought that back to the tribe, and our big meal that day was we each had 3 saltine crackers with barbecue sauce on it. So that was what we did. Like, that might have been, for all I know, but the brick of that barbecue sauce might have been like a saving grace for me at some point. Like if there was ever any doubt on keeping me in the game, maybe that helped. But that was a big moment for us at that point. Barbecue sauce on a saltine cracker.
So before we get to the Mutiny challenge, there is another Island of Ages, and you get chosen to attend this Island of Ages. Walk me through what goes on here.
Yeah, so it was myself and Joanna that went, and I can't remember what I asked Joanna. Oh yeah, I asked Joanna why they chose me. She said because they thought I did really, really crappy on the last challenge, so they thought maybe I was in trouble. So this was for Legacy Mutiny Advantage, and we had to take on basically all these disadvantages if we wanted to win this Mutiny Advantage, and each disadvantage would be allotted a certain number of points. So we could check off whatever disadvantages we were willing to take on for ourselves. And then whichever one of us two had the most amount of points checked off won the advantage, but we also won its disadvantages. My mindset at that point in time, we kind of sent Joanna. We just figured Joanna was probably the one who was in trouble on their tribe, so that was why we had chosen her. But then once I saw what the advantage was, I figured if she won that and she was in trouble, that could screw up what I felt was a good spot I was in and the people that I was with was in, if she mutinied to our tribe, because the other tribe would get to steal somebody from our tribe, and they'd probably take Andrew or Jamie, just because of their size, and how they had already been dominating like every challenge for us. So I took on quite a few disadvantages. Some I told my tribe about, some I didn't until later on. But my whole mindset was, I can't let Joanna have this advantage because it will screw things up for my tribe and the people that I'm working with right now.
So, did you talk much to Joanna when you were at Island of Ages with her?
I did ask her if she felt like she needed it and if she felt like she was in trouble, and she told me right away. I'm pretty sure I'm good. And she sounded quite confident, so that was quite different than what we were expecting back in Quantland. But other than that, we didn't really talk too much. I think we kind of just talked about, how the situation was at each camp, and I think that might have been when we found out that they already had their sleeping bags. I can't remember. But yeah, we didn't have too much time to talk before everything started anyway.
Did you ever think of trying to like negotiate her down? Because you end up taking a lot of disadvantages from this because you really wanted it, right? But did you think like, hey, maybe I can like try to talk her down so she doesn't bid anything and I can get it for cheaper?
Nah, I briefly considered, but I just kind of felt like that's just giving too much away. And then maybe she'd trick me. That even happened at the next one where Austin and Braden S kind of had a bit of a chat, at least from what Braden told us was Austin tricked him with what he was going to do. So yeah, I didn't want to risk it at all. I just didn't want to tell her what I was doing. I just took on a whole bunch of disadvantages.
And so you get back to your camp, and what do you end up telling your tribe?
So I told them that I can't remember how many that I took on, like 7 or 8 disadvantages. I know the ones that I did not tell them about was that I had 2 votes against me at the first tribal that I would attend, and that I could not vote at the first tribal that I would attend. I didn't tell anybody about that. I feel like I told them some ones that kind of really didn't matter. Like I think maybe there was one, if an idol was played on me, it wouldn't count. If rocks had to be drawn, or if I was involved in a tie, I would automatically lose it. And there was one where I wasn't, if the first tribal or the first challenge that we lost, first community challenge we lost, I wouldn't be able to be a part of all the talk beforehand. I had to go hang out at the Island of the Ages. So I kind of told them about most of the disadvantages. I just didn't tell them about the ones that would affect the first tribal council that I did.
And really, that ended up being like the 2 penalty votes. Is there any regrets in not mentioning that as well?
Not really, because it wasn't noticed that I didn't have a no vote. So it only looked like I only didn't tell them about one thing, as opposed to 2 things. But no, I don't have any regrets. I mean, I know that I didn't get any other votes, and they all went on Evelyn, and it was kind of a sure thing she was going home anyway. But it's just one of those things. If you throw it out there, it's pretty easy for some people to maybe be like, you know what, like,
what if?
Like maybe somebody sees something in me that early in the game where it's like, we should just get him.
He looks like his finals potential. We need to nip that in the bud now.
Yeah.
So I feel like one of the reasons that allowed you to be so aggressive and taking the disadvantages is kind of understanding at this point that the tribe Evelyn wants to be voted out.
Yes. And when I got home, a lot of my friends that were watching were like, "Man, you were so close to being voted out." Then the way people were talking, but I don't know. I didn't feel worried through it all. Like I was pretty sure Evelyn was going. I'm pretty sure she wanted to go the first time we lost.
If, let's say, Evelyn is not throwing in the towel and just telling everyone like, "Hey, I'm ready to go whenever we lose," and you don't have maybe that easy first boot, would you have still been as aggressive?
Definitely not.
Okay.
I definitely would have made sure I was there to talk to people right before tribal council as well, because that was a big like point allotment for that one. But I mean, if you're not present at all before the tribal council, like, why wouldn't people vote you out? Especially when you're looking for the first easy boot where no lines are drawn yet.
Yep. So after that, we go to the first immunity challenge. This one's being the Sixth Kingdom challenge, where everyone gets to be put in different roles. And unfortunately, well, for better or worse, your role is decided by their tribe because of one of your disadvantages, and they put you in. Was it the block stacking role?
Yeah, dominoes. I had to stack dominoes up the tower up to a certain height. And
I remember this was actually a pretty big choke point in the challenge for both tribes.
Yeah, David and I were stuck there for a little while. I don't know. I was going slow and steady, and I think he got like within a domino or two a couple of times, but he toppled down. I was just, I don't know, those last couple, like my hands were just like this. I felt like it was so hard to keep it going. And then at one point too, there was a bug that flew by, and I just instinctively like blew at it, and then I knocked down like four dominoes at that point, and they were like, and I was really close to the top. Like I probably only needed 3 or 4 more at that point. And like, that could have just knocked everything over. Luckily, only a few of them fell. But yeah, we were stuck there for a little while. But I was happy that I beat it before David, because they had put me on that one specifically, thinking because I asked David beforehand. I said, "Why'd you guys stick me on this one?" And he said something like, "You know, you seemed really strong in the last challenge, or like really physically fit," which was very funny for me to hear. But yeah, I think you guys stuck me on the wrong one. So.
If they wanted to truly sabotage your tribe, what part of the challenge should they put you on?
Probably the running one that Andrew did, or was it the slide puzzle at the end?
Wasn't that the tree puzzle?
The tree puzzle? I think I probably would have had a hard time.
I think it was the tree puzzle at the start, because the slide puzzle comes in a different challenge, I want to say.
Okay. Yeah, it was the tree puzzle. I mean, maybe it would have been all right because there's 2 people that could do it, but I don't think I would have been a big help for that one either.
So your tribe ends up winning, which is great, because the other tribe ends up going to the tribal council that night. As you reach the conclusion of this day 2, walk me through your thoughts on the 7 other players in your tribe and your relationships with them.
So I had kind of got some going on the second day, and I know I'm very aware now there's other stuff that was going on, but for me it was myself, Jamie, Taylor, and Braden had kind of linked up 4. Jamie was the first person that I kind of finally talked to on the second day when we were out idle hunting or looking for money. I don't know. Both of us spent so much of our extra time just walking around the woods looking for anything. And then he kind of already had something where he had talked to those 2. So he made a bit of a foursome with us. CJ, CJ, I talked to CJ a lot, and I think it was the same for everybody. Like, we all really like CJ. He was an awesome dude. But he kind of just was a little late to the game with any sort of strategy talk with people. I was late in the game, so I'm lucky that he was even later than I was. And then Andrew and Kevin, I kind of just tried to keep something cordial going with at that point, but my main concern was keeping that foursome well connected. And I kind of, I don't know, it wasn't really until right before Kevin went out that I felt like I connected with him. He was kind of always, I guess, like lower tier for me as far as strong connectivity goes on Quantum.
So, at the end of the day, too, I mean, what would you, if you had to put out 3 people in your tribe, which 3 would you have voted off? Like, let's say, if you lost 3 immunity challenges back to back, who would you try to vote out?
I mean, ideally, based on the 4 that I was in, it would have been Andrew, Kevin, and CJ.
Okay, or Evelyn first, then.
Oh, sorry, I thought she was out. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Well, Evelyn, and then I think just based on, I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to get rid of CJ, but I think that he would have been the vote for everybody, like he was, and then I guess out of the other 2, Kevin, ideally, just because I know that Andrew seemed more connected with Braden and Taylor than Kevin did, so he kind of had a bit more of an inside track to the group of 4, at least from my perception at that point.
So one of your big advantages, I suppose, is that you have the Ontario connection with Jamie and Taylor, correct?
Yeah. So that was another thing that when I first started talking to them about the strategy talk was just like, we didn't spend all the money to fly out here to go out on the second day of the game and just pay for an expensive camping trip. So at least let's give each other a couple of days here if we can help it. So that definitely helped bond us together.
So end of day 2, beginning of day 3, we have another Island of Ages experience. This time, Austin from the Blue Tribe and Braden S from your tribe goes. Tell me what happened when Braden got back.
So Braden basically, I can't remember how it works. It was like a steal or a save or something.
Better steal idol.
Okay, yeah, that's what it was. So Braden had explained to us how it worked, and he basically played it safe.
Mm-hmm.
The way he explained it to us is that Austin had also agreed to play it safe, but then Austin did take the idol. And I don't think anybody was really too upset because it sounded like from what Austin was telling Braden, was that Austin needed it, that he was in the minority. Austin kind of already, at least from the previous or the returning players talking to the rest of us, or even just from us watching previous seasons, he kind of already knew that Austin, could stir some stuff up as well too. So him having an idol wasn't really a bad thing from the way we saw it. And at the same time, for me, like knowing Braden, somebody on my tribe didn't have it, even though he's in my alliance, I'd still rather people not have an idol, just because if my alliance starts getting targeted and it's known that an alliance member has an idol, then I'm going to be more likely to be targeted. So,
how hard were you looking for your tribe's idol at this point?
I was looking all the time. And it was kind of nice because you could look for this stuff under the guise of looking for BC bucks, which I was looking for anything I could find. I wasn't finding anything at all. I think I found like a couple $5 bills the first few days, and then I found a few things near the end, but I didn't find nearly as much as I should have for the amount of time I was out there. And I know Jamie was definitely like staying up super late, waking up super early, but I barely slept when I was out there too, so I was up pretty early looking for stuff. And if we had any downtime, I was just wandering around looking for the idol or money. Right? I would say probably like, I don't know, 40% of the time we weren't doing challenges or tribal, I was probably walking around looking for stuff.
So the first challenge of day 3, you have this gross food hot pursuit combo, and this does not go well for your tribe.
No, definitely not. Didn't go well for me. When we walked into like the challenge area, I could already smell the food, and we saw some of the food getting dropped off earlier. Like when we would go fill up our water, we could see it getting dropped off, and we knew it was coming. And when we got into that area before we chose our roles, like the smell was so overwhelming already. Of just the worst mixtures of everything, just hot garbage. And but then the only other option was running, and that's not a good thing. Like I'm just not. I used to be good at running, but I haven't done anything for the last like 2 or 3 years as far as like exercise goes. So yeah, I wasn't looking forward to it from the get-go because I knew no matter what I was going to be performing quite poorly.
So you end up being one of the runners, correct?
I was, yeah.
And how did you end up getting put on the running side of things?
I was trying to let it just kind of let things fall where they may. I let everybody else pick first, and then it kind of came down to Andrew or I. Like I think Andrew would have done a much better job with running, but he wanted to eat food, so running was the last role. I kind of didn't feel too bad about having to do it because I didn't want to eat that food anyway, but I didn't think I was going to do as bad as I did with running. It got to a point where like I don't know, I felt like I couldn't even like feel my brain anymore. It was just I was saying completely incoherent things to Braden, like telling him I had to stop, and he pushed me for a little bit longer, and eventually I was done. I couldn't move at all anymore, so we had to stop and start walking. But yeah, he kept me going a little longer than I tried.
So hence I maybe wish I did more running ahead of the season for that one reason.
Yeah, that would have been a good idea.
So your tribe ends up losing. I would normally ask about the strategy and everything that happened back at camp, but you get to go a one-way ticket to exile.
Yeah. So this was from my disadvantage.
And so, what was running through your mind when you're chilling at exile?
I mean, I can't say that I wasn't at all worried. I mean, the fact that I had really botched that challenge for us did have me worried that I wasn't there for all the pre-tribal talk, but I just tried to keep myself convinced that Evelyn hadn't changed her mind. She was still going to want to go home. I had really been watching or listening throughout the day to see if anything would have changed now that she had her sleeping bag after the second night, to see if maybe she'd be like, hey, you know what, I might stick around now. But she still seemed eager to leave when the time came. So I don't know. I just kind of there was a blanket on the ground, and I just lied there and took a bit of a rest for. I think I was there for like an hour and a half before we had tribal council.
Anything you want to talk about with the tribal council?
No, I mean when we got there, nobody obviously knew that I had 2 votes against me. So, right beforehand, or maybe it was. I must have told somebody. I told Jamie. I told Jamie that I had 2 votes against me as a disadvantage. But I know a few other people were kind of like, "What is happening?" When a few votes started coming up for me, gave him a bit of a look, and I was like, "I can tell you afterwards." And everybody, I don't know. I mean, I tried to explain it away afterwards. I said, "I'm sorry I didn't say anything, but I hope you guys can understand. Like, this was the first tribal council. I don't think any of you would want anybody else knowing that there's already 2 votes against you when people are just looking for who to vote out, right?" So it didn't really seem to cause much strife for me after the tribal was done.
So with Evelyn out, was CJ's fate already sealed from the get-go because he had just come late to the game, the strategy, or were there a lot of people kind of figuring out where the vote was going to lie next?
I feel like I was confident it was on CJ, but I think I was wrongfully confident. I mean, I haven't gone back and watched people's discussions and stuff on the page, but just I feel like now I probably was closer to being voted, or I was probably being discussed more than I thought I was. But I think CJ was kind of slotted in that next out slot for quite a while.
Because when I look at your tribe, like you kind of have your foursome, right? Well, at least I see in the center of your tribe you have Braden, Taylor, and Jamie, and then you have 2 duos on either side. You have Andrew and Kevin on one side, then you have you and CJ on the other side. I feel like this next vote is really like, which duo does the middle want to work with, right? And it ends up being that they stick with, like, the trio sticks with Andrew and Kevin, and so they're going to take out one of the 2 of you.
Yeah, and I had a discussion with Jamie and whether it was all lip service or not, or he was actually considering it. Like we were like, is there any way it can be you and me and CJ? But I think when we discussed it, it was just basically like Taylor's not going to want to get rid of either of the returnees at this point. We just felt like it was a much more difficult battle than we were willing to fight at that time. Sorry, CJ, but it was very early in the game, and we knew we were good if we just went this other path.
So both tribes are going to be going to the tribal council next, and it's a touchy subjects challenge. Any highlights from this for you?
Yeah, like I was trying to pick myself for a lot of the answers just because I felt like I didn't want to offend anybody. Usually, I don't know, when I've played this in orgs, it's usually like at the very end of the game when you already like really hate half the people left, so you don't feel bad about anything. But then everybody just started voting Taylor for all the answers on. It just kind of turned into a joke to pick Taylor, and she ended up being the answer for quite a few of them. But some of them I don't know. Jamie and CJ seemed to take a bit of offense because Jamie was I least likely to want to share a sleeping bag with. I said, like, I'm a big guy, you're a big guy, and then like CJ was the most likely I would share a sleeping bag with because he's the smallest guy that was out there. I know I was expecting to be the least likely to find a romantic partner when I was out there. I wasn't chosen for that one. I thought, I hope my wife's not watching this challenge right now. That's one I should have been chosen for. And there was one I had myself. I was going to write myself down for who is playing worse than they think they are. But then right before that one, I was the answer for who is playing better than they are letting on. Like, okay, well, if obviously everybody else is thinking the opposite of what I'm actually. I felt like I was doing better than I was. But I don't know. Yeah, we came into that one. It was just kind of turned into a whole gang up on Taylor, and I think she won that one, didn't she?
Yeah. For us? She ended up winning. She beat out Jamie in the end, and then she went to the Island of Ages, doubled her immunity.
Yes. So at least she got something out of being picked up.
Any notable scrambling happened back at camp?
For that one, I mean, I kind of just I was fairly certain that it was CJ. I didn't get any bad reads from anybody. Like obviously, I tried to make sure with everybody that they weren't just screwing me around and lying to me, and I didn't really get any bad reads off of anybody. So I was pretty certain that it was CJ that was going home. It sucked. I mean, it was just kind of, I talked to CJ a lot when the game was done, and we got to hang out the weekend. It was just, he's an awesome guy. We just didn't get to talk strategy early enough, and it was the same sentiment for everybody, and he was gone at that point.
Were you surprised, though, at Tribal Council that CJ wrote your name down?
No, because I'd already discussed with everybody else that we would tell him my name. And I was fine with that because it made the most sense, because it did kind of, it was easy to look at our tribe with even just some sort of minimal knowledge of the dynamics and see that him and I were probably the two outsiders, or at least like lower in the totem pole. So I was fine with using my name as bait. It made the most sense anyway.
So at the end of the day, Braden L gets evacuated. Well, he leaves the game due to a work concern, and you learn that there's going to be a comeback challenge. Yeah. And three of the five people got voted out. Stevie, CJ, and David are competing to come back in the game. When you look at these three people, who do you want to see come back in?
I mean, obviously, the only person I had any connection with at this point was CJ. And if him coming back would give a new breath to try and make something new start with him as well. So I think most of us on Kwantlen were rooting for CJ, even though we had just voted him out. We wanted him back in.
Well, Stevie ends up winning, and you do end up on a tribe swap. But before we get into tribe swap and all the fun dynamics that happens, looking back, Vision 2020, is there anything you should have done differently in these first 3 days of the game?
Yeah, I definitely should have been more social and just I didn't realize how quickly people were talking about game. I just didn't see it happening. Like people were whispering pretty good. So, I mean, if I ever did one of these again, I know I feel like that was almost a detriment to my game right at the start. If Evelyn hadn't wanted to leave, I very easily could have been a first boot, even without the disadvantages. I feel like. Yeah, I'd pick up the social game at the start.
Because at least for me, looking back at this pre-swap tribe, it was a dangerous time for you. And I feel like a lot of the pre-merge is very dangerous, and really the merge, you really hit your groove from there. But the pre-merge, I feel like you were always a little bit on edge and at risk. Yeah,
and I never really felt that so much until I got home and people told me that. I felt more comfortable than I should have, I guess.
Well, speaking of not feeling comfortable, how much did you love your new swap tribe, right? This tribe featured Andrew and Taylor and you from your original tribe, and then Stevie, Joanna, Austin, and Austin from, let's see, hold on, I'm trying to get right. So yeah, because it was a tribe of 6, so it was you, Andrew Taylor from your original tribe, then Austin, Joanna, and Stevie from the Simiamu, the blue tribe.
Yeah. Wasn't great looking for me. As far as like the people that I came with from Kwantlen, I know that Taylor was in our group of 4, but as far as that group of 4 goes, I definitely felt the most connected with Jamie and Braden, and for me, Taylor was kind of like a connection through Braden in that group. And then Andrew was just somebody that I had never, him and Kevin were just the two that I hadn't really clicked so much with. And then for the other tribe, like, I mean, Austin and Stevie, we kind of got something, the seeds of something going pretty quickly right away. And maybe I would have worked something with it if it had worked out that way once we hit merge, and I think they would have as well. So I don't know, but I still didn't feel comfortable enough. I just felt like if we lost, I was the easy boot out. I felt like Andrew and Taylor would side with the original Semiami.
What about Joanna? You're reunited with her here.
I think we had already kind of caught some wind that I don't know if it was like she was very close with Stevie. So I kind of looked at her as a branch of Stevie if I did get something going with Stevie.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I didn't really speak with her very much in the one night that I was over there.
Hmm. So how quickly, at what point on this swap tribe are you just like, I'm using my power and I need to get out of here?
Um, it was probably like immediately. As soon as we got back and we started like setting up our beds, I think it was pretty immediate. Even after I had a chat with Austin and Stevie, I still didn't feel comfortable enough. Like I just felt better with the other guys on the other
Hmm.
tribe, and I knew that the Simiame would probably take Jen back, which was fine because I wasn't connected with her at all. So just like
Hmm.
I would just get to go back and connect with everybody that I was already well connected with.
Well, so there's an island of ages that happens first next morning. Joanna goes from your tribe, comes back. Anything to note with that?
Yeah, I can't remember what they had to do. Yeah,
It was
Kevin
a
won.
challenge, I believe.
Okay. She just told us that she had lost and that Kevin won. Um, I can't remember if she told us what it was for. Or was it for a hidden immunity idol clue?
Hmm.
Uh, uh, yeah, I don't know. I feel like we just didn't really care too much. It was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. And I know for me, I was kind of thinking like, okay, well, it's good that Kevin on Quanlan won it because I'm going to go back over there today. So
You get the first immunity challenge of the day, and boom, you're off.
yeah, um, I was I don't know. I guess when I got over to Quanlan afterwards, they didn't necessarily want me back. Not because they didn't like me, but because they had things set up nicely, I guess, to vote Jen out. But when
Hmm.
I looked at people, because we kind of had this whole like we had talked before a swap was going to happen. Like I mean, I had this immunity advantage for the benefit of the people I was working with. Obviously, I want to get myself further, but
Hmm.
I'm not going to get further in the game without my alliance mates. So
Hmm.
we had discussed how to use this mutiny advantage in the event of a swap, and we kind of had talked about like giving each other a signal. So when we got to our challenge mats, and I looked over at Jamie, and like he had this somber look on his face, and he kind of like just shook his head no. So I took that as like I'm effed, like we couldn't get anything going or something like that, right? And then I kind of look at Braden, and he's got like the same like it's that lip thing, right? Like and he's doing that and he's nodding. It was just like the two looks I got from them was like, okay, I gotta go. Like there's something's
Hmm.
going on here. I thought maybe Kevin had joined the other ones or something, So I didn't know. I just but either way, whether they wanted me back or not, I think it saved my butt in the game,
Hmm.
and we won, and we ended up winning steak dinner and sausages, which was the first time we had really eaten anything
Hmm.
that didn't suck that whole week. So
So talk to me about this new tribe ground because you win the meeting challenge. You also win really a state cookout. It's probably the best rewards ever seen in Survivor BC history. Not gonna lie. Your tribe has now four original Kwanzaa. You have Braden Ness, Kevin, Jamie, and you, and then you have two original Samiamu, Jess and Brandon. Was it easy red strong, or what was the idea what to do with this tribe?
I mean, obviously, so when we get back, I talked to the guys that stuck around to see what's going on, and the plan had been to vote out Jen, but now the plan will have to be to switch to vote out Jess. Brandon had basically come over to Red's side. I think he had some sort of incident with Jen
Mhm.
before the mutiny, saying like, I don't know why they were fighting, but I from what I'm aware of, he basically told her like, when we lose, I'm voting you out. And then
Mhm.
it stuck for him that she didn't get voted out; she got sent back to the other tribe. But the plan was on Jess. Um, at that point, I mean, when I was told that, I was fine with that because I hadn't spoken with Jess really at all this game. But then even just like as we like I mean everything moves so quickly in the game. Like even just as we were having steak dinner, and we were talking about different interests and stuff like that. Lord of the Rings and different. We did like I started connecting with her really quickly, and then I started feeling really bad that we were going to have to vote her out. And it was very nice too having. I mean, I had just been really only talking with guys for the last 3 days, so
Mhm.
it was nice to just have I don't know a different perspective from a female on
Mhm.
anything. to talk to as well. So, but then so then what came next? She went to the Island of the Ages and won her Safety Without Power.
Mm-hmm.
Next, didn't she?
Yeah. So after this challenge, Joanna's voted out. Jess goes from your tribe with Jen from another tribe to Island of Ages, and that's where she wins the Safety Without Power. Was she upfront about getting that when she came back to the tribe?
Yeah, she came back, and I remember. I feel like at this point there had already been some discussion of switching the vote to maybe Kevin about like a returnees alliance.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm fairly. I feel like it was still like 95% on Jess. And she came back and she kind of told the story, like set up the story as far as what went on there and blah blah blah. So she talked for like 2 minutes before she finally was like, the thing I wanted was Safety Without Power. And you could just tell the vibe with everybody was just like, oh shit, like are you kidding me? Like the one thing she could get to completely screw us over, right? I think probably in all of our heads we probably just switched it to Brandon. Could have been on me if they had bonded better with Brandon. I don't know, but at that point too, I wasn't too upset because I hadn't really connected with Brandon either, as much as I do later on. So with how I had been bonding with Jess, I wasn't too upset that she was going to get to stay. I feel like once I had Mutiny back too, like I don't know if I was giving her a bit more time of day than the other guys had been prior to my coming back there. So I think I was a welcoming face to her as well.
So how worried were you about the fact that you're at the final 11, you're smelling the merge, it's probably really close, and all 6 returnees are in the game? Like, how much of that was a concern to you?
It really hadn't been up until when Jess came back from the Island of the Ages and she was there with Jen. Jen said something to her about how the returnees are all banding together. Tell Kevin, and then you can come with us as well. But then Jess told that. I can't remember who else she told that to, but she at least must have said that to myself and Jamie and Braden and Brandon, because that was when we decided to turn the vote on to Kevin. Because that was when we kind of were like, okay, well, if it's being talked about now, then like there was always the belief that it could happen, and there was always like I think it was just kind of like, let's paint a target on these people and say that there could be a returnees alliance, but we never saw it come to fruition. And then now that Jen was actually talking about it, it's like, we got to start doing something about it. We voted out Kevin. I think I even said at the voting booth, I wasn't 100% certain like the other guys were that Kevin would have joined the returnees alliance. I was starting to get on really good with him at that point. And I don't know. I feel like, maybe he would want to do something a little different than what he did last time too. So I wasn't 100% convinced he would have gone with the returnees, but at the same time, I made it the final tribal with the way I played, so I can't say I'm upset with what we did.
Do you think you should have wrote up Brandon here?
No, I think I was more convinced. Like I said, I wasn't completely convinced that Kevin was going to go with the returnees, but I think I was more convinced at this point that Brandon was definitely with us. Just from knowing what the dynamics were with him and Blue, and how good him and Jamie were getting on. I felt like Brandon was just a for sure thing moving forward, and he had already burned some bridges with the other side, so it's kind of like he's guaranteed more so to be with us.
Were you aware of Brandon and Jamie's prior connection with each other?
By this point, I can't remember when Jamie told me. Somebody, I think I found out from Austin maybe when I went over to Blue, and then when I came back to Red, Jamie told me. And that whether he told me because he figured I knew by now, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it was Austin that told me. Somebody told me when I was over on the Blue tribe.
Yeah. Well, really, this is kind of with only 5 people you can vote for, right? It's like, so you don't want to vote for Brandon because you feel like he's in your alliance, and you have Braden and Jamie, who you feel very close to at this point, and really you don't have a lot of other options available to you.
No, so I mean, it was kind of, it was just everybody else wanted Kevin. Everybody else was convinced about him going with the returnees. So it was just the easy way to go. Like, why put up a stink at that point, really?
So Brandon goes home unanimously, and after that, it is the merge. You made it. 10 players remaining. Walk me through. Just let me just roll through the players and just tell me your thoughts on them and like who and which ones you felt you were close to. So let's start with Austin.
Austin. Well, Austin, I felt like I had got connected with when I went over to Blue, but I had already heard, people painted him badly, like from the start of the game with his reputation. But then also, since I was on Blue, like a lot of the stuff that he said to me directly, I knew that he had also now kind of said the exact same lines to a lot of other people. So at that point, it was just kind of like, all right, like this is what he's doing. He's just feeding everybody the same lines. So I kind of lost some connectivity with him there.
What about Stevie?
Stevie, I felt a stronger connection to than Austin as far as the trio from when I was on Blue. But we kind of had a bit of an understanding. Like we did have a chat at the start of the merge about some options, but neither of us were really willing to budge from the positions we were in. We felt like we were both in good positions on each side that we were on. We just kind of tried to say to each other, if we can help each other out as far as like maybe making sure the vote's not on each other as long as we can, let's do that. I think we kind of resigned the fact that we probably weren't going to get to work with each other, but we were cool with each other.
What about Jen?
Jen, I didn't really connect too much with at all. And I know she brought that up in Final Tribal, and a lot of it really was just because she had no reason to talk to me. Like she's a good player. Like she was gaming hard all the time, and always talking to people. And so she was just always busy doing that, and she knew where I stood. So we were just extremely not connected in this game because of that. There's no time to just kind of hang out, just talk, and get to know each other.
Especially at the merge.
Yeah.
What about Andrew?
Andrew, I was feeling a lot better with than I had earlier in the game. I know there was a period at the start of the merge where something kind of really turned where I felt really close with him, and then it got to a point where I can't remember, maybe like final 6 or 7, where him and Braden were like promising me a final 3, and it was just very obvious. It's like, okay, they're going to take me to final 3. They can both clearly demolish me in a challenge. And take each other to Final Tribal. So there was this period, like starting around now, where I was really starting to feel good with Andrew for a little while.
You mentioned this a little earlier, but let's talk about Jess again, right? Because you mentioned like at the end of your swap tribe, you really felt like you kind of had more of a connection with her than other players.
Yeah, and like I said, I think a lot of it was just I don't think she felt as welcome when she first went on Quantum 2.0, just because Brandon was an easy pull, so her and Jen were at the bottom, and then I gave her the time of day when I went back over there, and we chatted a bunch, and then that kind of led to other discussions as far as like different things that we could do, because I mean I was obviously quite aware that the groups that I'm a part of, I'm not upper tier in them at all, so I'm always looking out for any options that I have. I'm not going to say no to any alliance offers. And I'm always trying to plan ahead as well. So I was looking at different options with Jess, and we came up with some good ones that like really, as we went along, could have worked out very well for us if Braden ever lost an immunity challenge. We could never put anything in action together, really, for the most part.
Talk to me about Taylor.
Taylor, as the merge started, that's when we kind of started to see what Jenny had said to Jess about the returnees sticking together. We could see her gravitating more towards Jen and Stevie and all of them. And Jess was still she was kind of hovering in the middle with a lot of people. She was in a good spot there, but you could see her distancing herself from us. But at the same time, I mean, it's not on her. We were distancing ourselves from her as well. I think we were kind of just looking for any easy way to draw some lines, and that was an easy line to draw. We all made it easy for each other. So yeah, she was moving over to the other side from where I was at this point.
What about Brandon? Brandon's someone who started another tribe, then he was on your Quantum 2.0 with you. He said he was close to Jamie.
Yeah, I really I didn't talk to Brandon at all until merge. The first night I got stuck. I must have set up my sleeping area last. Like, we had these two tarps, giant tarps we slept on. And they were separated quite a bit, and I ended up over here on this far side. And the only people over there were Jamie and Brandon. And Brandon, he snores quite a bit. He usually has the CPAP machine at home, so I was right next to him. And there's 2 nights that I didn't sleep at all. Like, maybe I dozed off the first night, maybe I dozed off a couple of times here and there, and then that night I couldn't sleep at all. Like, it was just impossible. And I remember saying to somebody the next day, like, why the fuck did you vote this guy out the first day? Like, I know I went out there. One of my big worries going out there was snoring, because I usually snore when I sleep on my back. But I mean, maybe it was just the fact that I hardly slept. I didn't even have to worry about it. But we had
solves all the problems.
We had some big snores out there. But in that first night too, like, me and Brandon had an agreement. We kind of, when we started hitting it off pretty quick, it was like, whoever gets up first, let's wake the other person up and we'll go hunt for idols. Like, it's the first night after merge, they're gonna hide idols in the woods. So I just lied there all night listening to him. And he woke up, before the sun came up. It was probably like 4:30, and he woke me up like, hey, let's go. Or he starts hitting me, let's go look for idols. I'm thinking, like, this is when I can finally get to sleep probably, but whatever, let's go look for some idols. And of course we didn't even find anything anyway, so it wasn't even worth it. But
how many hours of sleep do you think you had over the course of the week?
I've said this to a few people. Like, I am not exaggerating at all. In 6 nights, I would think like 13 or 14 hours.
Oh wow!
It was because the first night and merge night, it was literally just maybe a few minutes here and there, and other nights I was always one of the last ones to fall asleep, and I was always one of the first ones to wake up. And a lot of it was just, I brought this mummy bag thinking that it was going to be cold at night, and it gets cold, but this mummy bag was so hot, and I couldn't. So I was always like so hot. And you can't roll over, but this is the one thing I wasn't expecting. It was like, you lie on your back in this mummy bag, and everything gets so numb. And then you try to roll over to your side, but you can't really do that in a mummy bag without making everything all messed up. But you do it anyway, and you get on your side, and then that gets numb, and then you try to roll on your back, and then everything's all screwed up, and you have to like actually sit up and fix stuff. So like, there was no point at any point in any night where I could just lie there and get like an hour solid sleep. It was constantly broken all the time, and it was probably, anytime between midnight and 4 a.m. is when I would get a bit of sleep.
So one of the things maybe you do differently is bring a different sleeping bag?
I would definitely bring a regular sleeping bag.
Moving on to the rest of the tribe, I think we're almost done. Let's talk about Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, Jamie was kind of a centerpiece for me throughout the entire game, him and Braden. So I was still good with Jamie, especially at the start of the merge. He was clinging to those of us from Quantland that had been good with him, because he was pretty worried about his standing at that point. So I think sticking with him during that first, I don't know if it was the first tribal when he played an idol. Sticking with him there kind of really helps solidify things with him even more.
And what about Braden S?
Braden, he's somebody, we just got better and better with each other as the game went on, and I know he had a lot of other really good connections as well, but to be cliche, like, I think we really did kind of play into the almost like father-son type of role, where I don't know, it was just like, it was nice for me to have somebody to kind of like give some advice to, and maybe he enjoyed listening to it. I don't know, because I do feel like there's a bunch of times throughout the game where I kind of just had to like try to level him out, calm him down, center him out a bit, just when he was getting upset about having to vote different people out and stuff like that. So yeah, our connection got great as the entire game went on.
So going to merge, who are then your top 3 allies, and who are your top 3 people you want out immediately?
Top 3 allies, I would probably be throwing it on Jamie, Braden, and Uh, Probably Andrew. I don't think like right at merged I was close enough with Brandon and Jess yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as people that I would want out, Taylor, Stevie, and Jen.
So looking at what this merge is, right? It's kind of fascinating, right? You have 5 original Semiamu, 5 original Red, Pure Tribe Quantlin. You have 5 returnees, 5 new players. Each swap tribe brought 5 players into it. What did you want to make happen?
We kind of really had the whole mindset now of like newbies versus returnees.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the returnees had that going on in their heads, but the newbies really seem to have that kind of going on in their heads. So I feel like that was a big focus for us. And it worked because then we kind of went. It was like 4 returnees in a row. I think at that
Mm-hmm.
point went.
Yeah, Austin, Stevie, Taylor, Jen.
Um, and it was like, I mean, at that point too, we had seen that they were really starting to stick together. So that was our big thing with looking at these numbers, was getting the returnees out.
So the opening immunity challenge is a balancing challenge, and Stevie ends up winning this challenge. Any thoughts?
Balancing one, is that the one where we had the stuff on our toes?
No, that's a later one. That's the final 7 challenge. I don't remember what you're balancing on this one, to be honest. I just have balancing act as my notes.
I feel like balancing act was the one where we had to lie on our backs. And we had that chalice in between our
No,
toes.
that's the goblet balance, where you're the goblet in like your feet, and you're holding the one above you.
I have no idea what this challenge was then. Balancing act.
Oh, wow. Okay, hold on. Let me go to the YouTube link. All right. This
Either way,
is the
I probably
challenge
didn't do very well.
where I don't know. Hold on. Okay, so this is where you have the cup on your head, and you have a little wooden platform, the ball on it.
Oh, okay. I think I did all right in this one. I think I was like, I got like 4th or 5th or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I kind of knew going into this, as far as individual immunity challenges go, I probably wasn't going to do very well. So, I was happy with that one. I think I did make it into at least the upper half of people.
Mm-hmm.
I think I got 4th or 5th place. So I was happy with that. It wasn't a strong showing to other people, but it was a strong enough showing for me to be happy. So with myself.
So let's talk about the scramble afterwards, because this ends up being a bit of a crazy tribal council where Jamie plays an idol that Brandon had given him, and it ends up being a 5-4-1.
Yeah, and like, so Austin went on this one, and we had reconnected after we had connected. Excuse me, when I was on blue for a bit, and it was at this point I really started to feel like I think he's actually genuinely trying to get something going with me. And he told me something about Jess, and I wanted to ask Jess about it. I just kind of wanted to like correlate 2 things. I can't remember exactly what it was, but no. Jess told me something, and I went to Austin, and then I said to Austin, "Don't tell Jess that I've told you this." And then it was probably not even 25 seconds later, Jess is coming up to me like, "Why'd you tell Austin about this?" And I could see like Austin was like standing like 30 yards from me. He like pretty much just like walked away from our conversation and went over to Jess and was like, "Yeah, Will just told me that you said this to him, blah, blah, blah." And then she came running over to me. And that was kind of at the point for me where I was like, "Are you friggin' kidding me?" Like, there wasn't even half a minute in between like this deception. Like it happened in plain view of me too. So that's when I was kind of just like, I don't even want to try to help Austin out at this point. Like, I mean, because the votes were already going on him as it was. I was trying to think of other ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I didn't have enough pull anyway at that point to do anything big. So, but yeah, I just remember that. It was just kind of like, are you kidding me? I'm like, I told you this 30 seconds ago. He was already ready.
Did you know that Brandon had the Semiamu idol and he had given the Jamie?
I don't think Jamie told me until afterwards that he got it from Brandon, but I can't remember where he said he got this
one. Because this okay, so Was there a lot of idol worry or paranoia that Austin might have had an idol? Because at this point he's burned his idol he got from the Island of Ages.
Yeah. Yeah, so there was definitely talk that he had one, and then there's a fake one out there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of didn't really. I don't know. I wasn't too worried at this point because I just kind of knew that I wasn't going to be the first vote at merge. I was quite certain of that.
Who did you know who the other alliance was voting for?
They all voted for Jamie, right? And yeah, we figured we knew they were voting for Jamie, and and he kind of made sure of that too with the way he had been acting that evening at the challenges and at camp and stuff like that.
So in all, this tribal council isn't a huge surprise. Ends up being a 5-for-1. Andrew flips, votes for Jen at the bequest of your alliance, and Austin is the first one out and does not even make the jury. So now we get to the final 9, and you get to go to the Island of Ages to start this round.
Yes. So this was for some sort of disadvantages. Austin chose to send me there. I didn't really know, like, it's kind of like with what you get, I didn't know if he sent me because he was trying to, I guess I didn't know what information he was given as far as what that person's going to be doing that he sends. So I didn't know if he was sending me because he was pissed off at me that I voted him out at the last tribal, or if he was still trying to actually help me. But yeah, so I had to take on a number of disadvantages of my choosing, and I guess I could take on none if I chose that. And as long as I survived the next tribal council with those disadvantages in play, then I would be able to transfer them on to another player for the next round. So I had a couple of them. I know that one was that I could not compete in the next immunity challenge. If there was a tie, I would automatically lose, I believe was one.
Those are the 2 you end up accepting.
Okay. Yeah. Was there another one, or was it just those?
There were 4 total. I think another one is you don't strategize your tribe. You go the exile after the immunity challenge, and I don't remember what the 4th one is. It's on the Google Sheets somewhere. I can always check.
And I know, like the ones that were about to tie, like it wasn't going to affect me anyway because we were at 9 at that point. So like, okay, well, I'm going to choose anything that refers to a tie because whatever, it's not going to affect me. It's going to affect the person that I put it on next.
So really the main one is you aren't competing in the next challenge. And the next challenge is where everyone has the candles. You're trying to snuff them out. Unfortunately, you have to sit out of that challenge.
Yeah, and I mean, I watched it, and there was another one I watched. I was like, I wouldn't have done good in this one anyway. So, I'll be happy to take the disadvantage and pass it on to somebody else for the next round.
So Andrew wins immunity. Talk me through the strategy that happened.
I think I think by the time we got to that tribal council, we weren't too worried because we hadn't been completely forthcoming with Andrew the last time. We were putting votes on Jen. That must have been because we weren't completely sure if he was doing the returnee alliance thing or not.
But now you trust him.
Yeah, but then in turn, at this point now, we've lied to him. So it's like, is he going to come with us? And he did. And I don't think we had any concerns at that point, thankfully, because he won immunity. So it was just kind of we voted out Stevie because Stevie had won immunity the last round. He had won the battle back. We just kind of figured out of the people that were in the other group, opposing group from us, that he was the biggest threat to get out at this point in time. I mean, he made it to final 3 his season he played before, and from the looks of it, if he had made it to the end, he would have won the game. So he's a very good player, and we wanted to see him gone sooner than later.
So the minority votes for Brandon. Did Stevie, Taylor, or Jen reach out to at all the vote with them this round?
Yes. So this was one. Stevie had kind of asked if I was voting for him or if we were all going to be voting for him, and I did tell him that I was going to be voting for somebody in his alliance. I wasn't. I know we had kind of talked about letting each other know if there was going to be votes. At this point, I was still just extremely terrified of any advantages or idols, so I didn't want to. I felt like I was still being somewhat forthcoming with them, saying like, "Listen, I can't help you out. I'm not going to. I'm still voting with these people. I'm going to vote one of you guys out." So we did have a bit of a talk at some point, Stevie and I, but by this point, Taylor and Jenny, they weren't really talking to me much.
You know that Brandon had given the Semiamu idol to Jamie. Who were you worried about the Quentin idol popping up somewhere random?
Yeah, that was always in the back of my mind because we didn't know if Kevin left the game with it. We didn't know if somebody had actually found it in the first couple of days. Like, I mean, we felt like somebody must have had it early on because we ripped that forest apart. Like we literally ripped stumps out of the ground to look into things. So
This is not an environmental friendly season, I'm hearing.
yeah, it was just, I don't know, like we there was no way that it could have still been out there. The second, third, fourth day. So I think we were all pretty sure that it had been found at some point. We just really had no idea when. Like it could have even been like maybe, like when Jess and Jenny and Brandon were over on Portland after the swap, maybe they found it at that point. We had no idea. We knew it had to be out there.
So Stevie has voted out 6-3. The minority votes for Brandon. At the next round, you can start by placing your disadvantage of any one player. Talk me through your thought process here.
So I knew that our next two targets would be Taylor and Jenny. And this was kind of around when Jess was voting with us.
Yeah.
Or at least was feeding us information, but maybe not quite voting with us and voting with the other side to keep up a facade. But
Jess voted with you the first two tribal councils. This will be the first round she flips.
Yeah. I chose to put them on Taylor because knowing that Jess was kind of turncoating to us, she wasn't going to want Jenny out before Taylor. And that was just kind of information that had been passed on from her to probably Jamie or something. I just remember that being discussed, that she was just much closer to Jenny in this particular game so far. So I chose to put them on Taylor, guessing that she would likely be our next target of the two.
I forgot to ask some questions earlier. When you came back from the previous Island of Ages visits, after receiving the disadvantages, did you tell anyone did you tell people exactly your disadvantages and the disadvantage match portion of it?
No, so I told people that I had to do a slide puzzle, and if I completed it in like 4 minutes, I would get this clue to the hidden immunity idol. And if I didn't, then I would have to sit out the next challenge if I lost. And I had already made it quite known at different points in the game that I'm absolutely atrocious at slide puzzles. So it was an easy challenge to throw in there. I think it had already popped. Slide puzzles had already popped up in the game a few other times, so it kind of just seemed like something, it made sense. So there wasn't really any questioning about it until the disadvantages went on to Taylor, just because there was a bit of similarity between some of those. So.
So did you confess to anyone? Like, yeah, I did that to her?
Not until final tribal council.
Okay.
I didn't. I mean, at final tribal council, when I came clean about it, I felt awful, and I explained that in final tribal. When I was setting it up, like in my head, as a gameplay move, like especially, I don't know, like I kind of imagined looking at this as a viewer, and like I want to do something really freaking cool for like the people watching. So like the game bot, mode in my head, I'm thinking I have all these disadvantages that I can like perfectly place on an opposing alliance member to just set it up amazingly for us to get this person out next, and which is exactly how it went. Much to Taylor's dismay, it went exactly as I would have liked it to have gone. But that afternoon was not a pleasant one around camp. Like Taylor was made aware of these disadvantages that were on her. She knew that she was going to be a likely target. Just the fact that she, and I hadn't considered this, the fact that she knew she was not going to get to compete in the next immunity challenge, and not even like have an opportunity to save her butt when she knows she's probably going out next, like that sucks. And I recognize that as I saw it, was like, this is pretty crappy for her. But then like she did come to me I don't know if she came to me first. She didn't accuse me, but she obviously was inquiring as to whether or not I might have put these on her because there was a similarity of the one where she couldn't compete in the challenge, which I just had. But I threw something out there like, I don't know, have you seen these disadvantages lists? Like both times I've gone, there were similar disadvantages. So it's just like they keep reusing a lot of the same ones. Maybe I think I said something like maybe Stevie put it on you to kind of like, I don't know. I just came up with anything I could, and whether she bought it or not, I don't know. But she never came back to me about it again after that. And then she started accusing a few other people, and I know Jamie especially, she was accusing. And basically everybody was involved in a fight except for me. So I had caused the entire thing, and I'm just hanging out at camp, lying around while everybody is off fighting and crying and coming back and crying and leaving, storming off this way. And that was when I knew I couldn't tell anybody that I had put the disadvantages on Taylor, because there was no way people were going to let me go any further in the game, knowing that I had been the catalyst for everything that just happened.
Do you regret putting it on her? Do you wish you put it on a different player at that point?
I don't know. I mean, I feel it was shitty for Taylor. It sucked for Taylor. And I'll say yes, in the sense that I didn't like seeing how upset she was. In the game sense, it was cool that it worked out, I guess. It was just unfortunate that it was at her expense.
Well, do you want anything you want to say about the immunity challenge? This ends up being the periodic symbols, OTEV, race out, find the correct symbol. More deviously, Dara only told you the actual name of the element, not the symbol. So you have to know that the letter K was for potassium, for instance, or lead was PB, etc.
Yeah. I don't know. I've probably, last time I looked at a periodic table of elements was like grade 11 biology class. I don't know, grade 11, you're like 16. So it was a long time ago. And I'm not a science guy. I'm not a math guy. And so we had been given a copy of the periodic table of elements that morning. And really quickly, Brandon took it and just stuck it in his bag and just hid it from everybody. And he only told me that he had hid it. So I never even got to study it, even if I wanted to. But all day, people were like, because we got it in the morning, and we had, I think, like 1 or 2 challenges before we actually had this challenge. So all day, people are like, where is that piece of paper with the table of elements on it? And then I was kind of worried because I got second place in the challenge. And I had been saying beforehand, like, I don't know anything about science. I don't know anything about the table of elements. And then I get second place. I'm thinking, like, oh, people are going to think now that I stole this thing and I'm hiding it somewhere. But I only got lucky. Like, the only ones I got right were ones that started with the same letter. And then I got lead right. I think it was PB. Just because when I was running out, I said to Brandon, I was like, which one is it? What is this one? And he said PB. And then I grabbed the last PB before he got it. He got knocked out. So then when it came down to Jenny and I at the end, it was gold. And I just went and grabbed the first one I saw. It was an M. And I stood there for a bit while Jenny was still looking. And I even still asked if I could go change it, because I know there's a K up there. So I started thinking maybe it's K because for carat, for like carats of gold, and it still would have been wrong. Like I don't know anything about that stuff. So I was lucky to get stuck. But Brandon hid that thing that morning, and people were still talking about it like on the last day. Did anybody ever find out where that periodic table of elements went? He said that he told me after the game that's why he voted for me at the end, because when he got to the jury and he started asking people, like, did you ever find out where that went? And when people were joining the jury, did you ever find out where that went? Nobody knew where it went. So that's when he realized, like, man, he's a solid guy. He didn't tell anybody that I took this thing.
So with Jen winning immunity here, did that just seal Taylor's fate?
Yeah, it definitely did. I think it was probably a good chance it was on Taylor anyway, just because we wanted to kind of keep Jess happy. But it definitely did seal her fate.
So this is the first round Jessica flips to the minority and ends up being a 5-3 vote. Was that something you knew was going to happen going to this vote?
I feel like if I'm remembering right, we had a pretty good idea. She didn't want to vote for Taylor, just because of the connection they had, and they were friends, I believe, before the game as well. I don't know, you just get to a point in the game where you get emotional about things, and I think she knew she was in a spot where she could vote the way that she ended up voting, and not cause any issues with it. So
Was there, because I remember, like, was there ever serious doubt that Taylor would go home, that the vote would actually get flipped to Andrew? Was there ever concern about this for you?
Not me particularly, not as much as the other guys. I don't think. I felt pretty good that Brandon was going to be voting with us. I felt pretty good that I felt like we were fine.
So Taylor goes home, and this wraps up day 5. Really, you listed out 3 returning players. All 3 of those returning players went home. We're going into day 6 with just 7 players left. Only 2 of those are returning players. Your Quantum 2.0 is all intact. In fact, you kind of picked up Andrew in the process. So really, only Jen is the only major person working against you at this point. What's going through your head?
Yeah, so at this point, it's just kind of let's get Jen out next. Hopefully, she won't win immunity. And by now, I would have been Jeff had come to me and proposed something as far as her, her and I and Brandon and Jamie, with the pairings kind of being her and I, and then Brandon and Jamie, just because of their connection that they had already had, and that was something that we really wanted to get going. And then plus she had alluded to me that within our 4, Brandon would be siding with her and I. The impression she was given, I guess, from him. But this is something we just never got to work out, because by now, Braden starts winning every immunity challenge. And that kind of throws a wrench into anything else that anybody tries to do for the rest of the game. Because I think we were all really not wanting to be at the end against Braden as the game went on.
I mean, so think before Braden has even won a challenge, at the end of day 5, final 7, were any of the other 6 players like, I cannot sit with them at the end, they need to go?
No, not me personally. I mean, there's people that I felt were more clear winners than others, and people that I knew I definitely would have a much more difficult time against. My thing was, I thought I was going to be more coherent at the end if I made it there. And
I mean, not sleeping for 48 hours can do that to you.
So I was kind of, my mindset was like, I'll go against anybody, and I'm usually pretty good with my words. I feel like that's just something I'm good with, public speaking, presentations, that type of thing. So I kind of banked on that at the end, and it wasn't there for me. So, I had my list of people that I knew would be more difficult to go against, that I would prefer not to go against, but I was still willing to go against anybody.
So you actually did sleep this last night, or the night of day 5? You actually got sleep?
I would have gotten a bit of sleep that night.
You slept away from Brandon and Jamie? Yeah,
because as soon as Austin went the day before, he was actually sleeping in the furthest spot from Brandon. So as soon as we got back to the camp, I moved all my stuff to where Austin was. And I couldn't believe, like, it wasn't even like I was that much farther away, but the difference in noise was astounding. I couldn't believe how different it was. And it was probably like I was like 20 feet further away from him, and that was it.
So at the start of the next day, you find a clue to an advantage.
Yeah. I think it was when I was kind of cleaning. I was always spending a lot of time just picking crap up and throwing stuff out. And we had a bit of a makeshift table. It was just a piece of plywood stuck on top of some branches that we kind of just had a bunch of different random things sitting on. So I would say it was I was at like chest level. And I had bent down to pick some stuff up, and then I could see that something was duct taped underneath it. And people were just kind of waking up, like a handful of people were gone away from the camp, just going to the washroom, getting water. 2 people, I think Brandon was still sleeping, maybe Andrew. But I was able to grab that thing. I grabbed it, and I ran off to a private spot to see what it was right away. And it was the perfect steal a vote advantage.
And because it's a great picture at the start of the next immunity, the advantage is hidden in the pole that holds the individual immunity necklace, and you just saunter over, grab it, walk back over, just like, oh my gosh, what just happened?
Yeah. I had thought maybe of doing something a little more incognito, picking it up afterwards or something. I didn't know how noticeable it would be, but where we were standing when we were having the challenge explained to us, I couldn't really see that that well. So I just thought, I'm going to go get it right now. I don't want to risk anybody else going near it. Like, I don't know if this challenge is going to bring people close to it, so I'm just going to go get it now. And ideally, because I didn't. If it was a hidden immunity idol, I probably would have played it a little more coy, but because I feel like those are useless if anybody else knows that you have one. But since it was what it was, I didn't mind doing it in front of people.
So this is the goblet challenge. You're on your back. The goblet's. You're balancing a goblet on a wooden stick, and you're also like keeping a goblet in your feet or something like that. Walk me through how much fun this was for you.
Not a whole lot of fun. I think I did okay in this one again too. I kind of made it to the middle of the pack, and it's just one of those things that it's just, I don't know. It doesn't favor people of my body type. And so I knew I wasn't going to do great. And then Braden also had the advantage where he was going to get to join in late as well. So I was just kind of like, okay, well, this kid's going to kill us in this one, even without the advantage. So yeah, it was just another one of like, okay, well, let's just see how long I can go, and hopefully I won't be the first one out.
And so this ends up being the first of Braden's many immunity challenge wins. Were you worried after one win from him? Was this when you're like, okay, now we have a problem, or that was later on?
No, definitely not. Because I mean, I knew there was going to be a combination of different types of challenges coming up. I didn't know he was going to be awesome at all of them. I think like Jamie and I kind of both really upped up a few things in a few different challenges where we really had a good chance to win as well. So there were some close ones that we could have had. Yeah, he just killed it. He just always killed it.
So talk me through the strategy. This ends up being until you play your advantage, a very close vote where it's a 3-4 vote, 4 votes Jen, 3 votes Jamie, and then you use your advantage to make it a 5-2.
Yeah, so this was another one. We knew that Jess was going to vote with Jen. And this was kind of like, I had talked to her, and we were still good with our plan for doing something with Brandon and Jamie. Moving forward, she just could not vote for Jen. But I didn't know that Brandon was going to vote for Jamie. That kind of really could have screwed things up if I hadn't stolen that vote. That would have tied things up, right? It was 4-2. 5-2.
So yeah, so it was a 4-3 Jen vote, and your extra vote made it a 5-2 Jen vote, or your steal vote made it an extra 5-2 Jen vote.
So I guess so we still would have had it, but it would have been pretty dicey. It was nice to have the extra bit of insurance. Ideally, I can remember thinking like, man, it would be nice to use this for the next one. Just because I was thinking like, I didn't think Brandon was going to vote for Jamie. I thought we had Jen in the bag for sure on that one. And I remember thinking this would be very nice to have for the next one when we could potentially start cannibalizing each other. Maybe have to go after Jamie, maybe have to go after Braden. But at the same time, everybody was expecting me to use it, especially Jamie, because he was not feeling safe at all. And if I didn't use it, I kind of felt like I was going to lose a lot of goodwill with those guys. And this was not the time of the game where I wanted to be losing any sort of favor with them. So.
Did you think about voting Jamie off? Was that where you attempted to use your advantage to do that? Because you could have.
Yeah. I think it was probably around now where I started looking at possibilities of what could work. Because it was around 7 or 8. It was when there was still people like returnees left where Braden had told me that Jamie had mentioned my name as somebody that needs to go soon. So that was kind of when I was like, okay, this is when it's all starting now. We got to start turning on each other, I guess. So that's when I started becoming more cautious of him and at least considering different options. But everything, I mean, we both really needed each other, I feel like, to get as far as we did. So.
And at least the way the vote worked out, it was easy to know who Jim was voting for.
Yeah, well, no, this one was the Dark Ages, so we only saw that Jen voted. or Jen
Well,
wasn't really voted out.
I guess more specifically, it was easy to know ahead of time she was casting her vote for Jamie, just the way things were breaking down.
Yes. Yeah, we were pretty sure of that. And you kind of you think about like, oh, well, will they just like pick somebody random to throw us off because they knew about my advantage at this point. But they still voted for Jamie anyway. I think they just out of spite. I think at that point they just really wanted to get Jamie out, and if throwing a few votes on him, maybe something goes wonky, and or
the weirdest thing that ever happened.
A last ditch FU maybe to him.
So, final six, you end up starting with the last visit to the Island of Ages, and this is your favorite activity in the game. Wagering disadvantages. You are a pro at this point. How badly and so basically this is an idol that whoever wagers the most disadvantages gets said idol. That's good for the final five. Just the problem is you have to take some nasty disadvantages to get it. How badly did you want this idol?
I actually wanted it really badly, and I think I was second or third as far as the points. When we discussed afterwards, I didn't let on that I had put in as much as I had. Brandon said something like he put in like 20 points, and then I think Braden was like 16, and I was somewhere around Braden. I was like 16 or 17. I don't know, whatever I was thinking at that point in time when I was filling out that sheet, I was thinking that it would be really good for my game. And when I see what happened to Brandon, and I've thought about it. If I had gotten that advantage, how would I have played that situation out? I don't really see any good situation coming out of that. I feel like it's impossible to walk out of that as well without somebody finally knowing you were the one that won the idol. And it's just such an easy reason to vote you out at 6 when you have an idol at 5. Like nobody's going to give you. Most people aren't going to give you 2 free passes to Final Four.
So, how quickly did you know that Brandon won the idol?
He came back right away and showed us. He pulled it out of his pockets and shorts and showed us that he won it.
And so before Brandon had shown you the idol, did you know how you wanted to vote at this final 6? Like who you wanted to target? Because at this point, you've kind of knocked out the minority.
Yeah, I feel like there might have been some talk now of doing Andrew. We didn't do Andrew yet, but we kind of just we were looking at him like when I was talking. This is like when I say we. This is like Jamie and I believe we were talking about Andrew, just because we kind of thought we saw him as somebody that would be winning a lot of the immunities to the end. Wasn't necessarily somebody you'd want to go against at the end either, just because of all the returnees that were going to be on the jury. So I think there had been some discussions of Andrew, but things did change very quickly to Brandon once he pulled that idol out, and we knew what some of his disadvantages were going to be. Like I think he wasn't even allowed to hang out before tribal council.
Yeah, so he was an ex because one of his disadvantages, probably the most debilitating, is he went to, much like you, he went to exile after the challenge and rejoined tribal council. Like so he had no time to shape the strategy.
Yeah. So I think that was his death sentence, because I can remember even having a discussion with Jess at this point, and Jess and I had been discussing him as a third person in a final 3, and even we were kind of like, the way we saw things going, it was just we can't let him get through these next 2, basically.
So this was the Golden Age stepping stones, where you have to paint a large poster board gold, and you use that to move across the field to collect tiles to unscramble a word puzzle. How was this challenge for you? Because this ends up being Braden win number 2.
Yeah, this was when I had a good shot at. I had a good start. Like I was moving pretty quick. I had a good groove going, and then I saw Andrew. He had a tactic where he basically, like, I think once the paint kind of got sticky enough, it got hot and pushed into the paper enough, you could really just stick it right to the bottom of your shoes. So instead of moving all these things and placing them and moving, he was literally just like walking.
Yeah, you broke the challenge.
Yeah, so everybody kind of started following suit at that point, and like you moved a ton quicker. So I think he finished first just because he started that method quickly, and then I came up like I started having my unscrambling, I think second, and my whole thing was my Y was off down this hill a bit and in the grass. So I'm looking at these things and I can see, like, I think the answer was something like it's our destiny or our destiny. So I saw all these words and like destined and our and your, or like, so like if I had that why, because I had so much time to figure it out before Braden had it, I'm certain I would have had it. If that why was there, I would have won that one. That was just there was a couple like that where it was like one stupid little mistake and I could have won immunity.
So So two things I want to kind of talk about. First is Jessica votes for Jamie this round. Is that something you knew what she was going to do? Was that a surprise to you?
That one, no, that one I think we told her that the vote was going to be Jamie, because we didn't want to tell her for sure we were voting for Brandon.
Oh, interesting.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like that's what it was. I can't quite remember. I feel like I remember her being shocked afterwards though, and being upset that we made her put a vote on Jamie and he was still in the game.
And then Braden reveals he has the original Quantum Idol. He plays it for Andrew.
Yeah, that was a big secret. Since he found that on the very first day, probably like within the very first hour that we were at the camp too. And then we had put some stuff together where I had a fake idol, and he wanted me to pull it out at tribal. And I don't know. I remember he was like, pull your idol out too. And I remember thinking like, why? Like it's fake. Like just I don't know. It was a whole big show that was put on, and I thought it was stupid. I thought it was stupid being with the part that I had in it, and I just looked like an idiot pulling out a fake idol, and everybody I think everybody knew it was fake. I think because we had made a fake idol for like the previous tribal council to try to trick somebody from the other side. So everybody that was there knew it was fake. I don't know. He told me to pull it out, and I pulled it out because I didn't know what was going on. I was so tired and out of it probably.
Well, the fun just doesn't stop because your next challenge is the Story of Ages challenge. You're asked questions about all the rounds you've gone through. And once again, Braden wins immunity for the third time.
Yeah, and that was another close one because I know we were keeping scores on our own tablets as well. I think he beat Jamie and I again by like 1 or 2 points. We were right there.
So had Braden lost, would you have been looking to vote for him at this point?
I think this was the first one for sure because this was his third in a row that he won. So definitely at the last two, because then, especially by that point, we're down to the final 5. Yeah, we were by this point. If he had lost, we definitely would have voted him out, I would think.
So why Andrew? Why vote for Andrew?
Jess, I think it was just the connections of everybody that was left. Jamie and Jess and I all felt closer to each other than we did with Andrew. And we didn't tell Braden about it either, just because with everything he had been doing and pulling out, who knows what else he might have in his pocket. So we didn't tell him we were voting out Andrew. But yeah, it was basically just the connection of the three of us, and it would also weaken Braden as well, because we could see that there were some things going on that made it look like they were probably a potential final 2. I think I mentioned earlier that they were talking to me a lot about being a final 3. And they had approached Jess about the same thing. Like she talked to me about that, and we were both like, okay, it's because they know they could just beat us at the last challenge and just take each other to the end. So we knew it would kind of weaken him a bit too.
Did you have any firm final 2, final 3 deals operating?
Yeah, I did with Jess, and I did with Braden. And I remember Jess asked me after the game was done, when we were all hanging out that night, if I had won the final challenge, and it was the 3 of us, would I have taken her? And I don't know who I would have taken. Like at that point, I don't know. I was so close with Braden, and he had promised me a lot too, and I believed him, and he followed through on a lot of the stuff he promised me at the end game. But I bonded really quick with Jess, so I don't know. It's tough to decide who I would want to go to the end with more. I think I'd have a harder time getting Jess though with that jury.
So final 4, you have a blindfolds obstacle challenge that involves just a bunch of different pieces, parts, and this is a nail biter. I don't remember who Braden edges out, but Braden fairly edges out the victory here for win number 4.
Yeah, he both Jamie and I, because I got the first list done first of
Mm-hmm.
the order of people that went to the Island of the Ages,
Mm-hmm.
and then we had to write down the different ages. So I wrote them all down, but I wrote medieval ages instead of Middle Ages, and then before I could figure out what I did wrong, Braden won. And it was just like I don't know. It was just I was so angry again because it's like it was just the same thing as if I had that Y. Like
Mm-hmm.
I finished before him. I was done before him. I just wrote the wrong word. I think of like knights and castles and queens and whatever, and I think of medieval times, and I just think of the word medieval. So I wrote that before Middle
What I'm
Ages.
hearing is like you were this close to being the challenge piece of the season. Like very easily you could have been sweeping the challenges. It just wasn't so.
I had a lot of second and third places, and then on that one, like Jamie started writing the ages. I think just a few seconds after Braden did. So he had four of them written out when Braden finished his 7 or 8 or however many they were. We were both extremely close beating him in that one, and that would have been such a nice one to win because it was such a long, difficult, arduous challenge.
How much did you enjoy the balut?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, why I kind of tried to stray away from the food challenge earlier, and I don't know, like if it's bad enough that they eat it on actual Survivor as disgusting food, like it's not, it's not going to be enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that a lot of countries that say things are delicacies, it's just like some fake thing that rich people just say to make the commoners feel good about themselves, and they're off eating escargot and all that sort of thing. People are eating guinea pigs and whatever else. But
Guinea pig's actually pretty good when it's deep fried.
well, I don't even want to hear about it. But it was just like that. But it'd be Jamie too. Like Jamie was barfing the whole time when I'm trying to eat, and Jamie would gag all the time, all week. Like he'd wake up in the morning and his throat would be dry, and he'd just start gagging. And I'm one of those people. Like if I hear somebody, not even to see somebody puking, if I hear somebody gagging, like that's it for me. So that happened a lot throughout the week, where Jamie would just randomly start gagging, but. I could hear him behind me, so I'm trying to eat this blue egg, and I can hear him, and then I eventually look at him, and he's just like on his hands and knees, like full body convulsions. And I came to find out afterwards that he threw some of it up and had to eat it again too. But it was just I don't know. It took me a while to get through it. I kind of just tried to like pasteurize it in my mouth, like between my teeth. I was pushing it with like my tongue to make it easier to swallow. It seems stupid, but it was so hard, like with how gross you just feel and how dry your throat is. Like even just like a dime-sized bite, to swallow that size it just seems so hard to do. And the egg part too, that's boiled or steamed or however they do it, it's almost like I had like the consistency of like a bouncy ball that you get of like
rubber
a vending machine. Yeah,
there's a piece that's just like you're just like I'm eating rubber, and it's
exactly. So you couldn't even I couldn't even break it. And then when I got to the end, because there was some liquid on my plate from when I broke open the egg, and then I had that bird left that had its feathers and bones and everything, and I just kind of like turned it over a bunch of times and sopped it up in the liquid, threw it in my mouth, and then drank back the rest of the liquid on the plate. I did bite into it, and you could feel like it's partially developed bones in its beak. That part I found easier. I don't know, maybe it was just from getting it all soaked in that whatever the gross juice was. That part went down pretty quick.
I'm just thankful I did my challenge at midnight and I just didn't look at what I was eating. I was just like, it's just a hard-boiled egg. It's crunchy. Oh, I left the shell on top.
On the final morning, they brought Braden and I breakfast for final tribal council, and it was from a local restaurant, but it had sausage, bacon, hash browns,
Eggs.
and then there was an egg in it. And they brought us the breakfast, and we kind of just went off on our own to prepare for final tribal. And when I came back to throw my stuff out, he said to me, he's like, "Man, I couldn't eat my eggs." I said, "I'm never eating a fucking egg again for the rest of my life." Like,
have you held to that?
I have. I mean, I know that there's eggs have been an ingredient that's like been mixed in, but as far as like an actual egg to being cooked, like no. Just even the thinking of the smell of an egg right now, of a boiled egg, can't do it.
So this ends up going to a tiebreaker, and you and Jess both cast your vote for Jamie, while Braden and Jamie both cast their vote for Jess. Walk me through what the strategy going on here.
At this point, I'm fairly convinced that Braden is taking me, um, just from the discussions we had, and I feel like, and I haven't gone back and watched anything. I feel like it's partially just the really strong connection we made,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe a sense of obligation we felt with each other. And I do feel like he felt I was, and I feel like I was too. I would be easier to beat than Jess and Jamie at the end. So I was fairly certain I was going to the end. Um, I kind of, Jess and Jamie, I really like both of them. Like I got on great with them the entire time I played with either of them in the game. Jamie, Jamie, I felt at the time had a better chance to win
Mm-hmm.
if he made it to the end, and that was a big reason why I was willing to go with Jess. And at this point too, like Jess and I, the last 2 days, really good with each other, really open and honest with each other. And at the same time, I know there has been some behind the scenes stuff between Jamie and I with like, maybe if the opportunity is there, we should get the other guy
Mm-hmm.
out. Looking back though, I feel like out of the four of us, Jess had the best chance to win. Um, I think she would have won the most unanimously out of the four of us at the very end. So uh, it sucked that she went then. I think she could have won for sure. It was just a matter of timing where she didn't have her hand move down to the next level before
Mm-hmm.
Gyro was done counting. It was a misunderstanding on her part because like the first couple minutes for that challenge, she was steady and
Mm-hmm.
Jamie was all over the place. I don't know how he survived as long as he did. So I think she would have won. Um, and she probably would have had a really good chance on the final tribal challenge as well, or the final immunity challenge. So she had a very good chance of making it to the end.
Well, so I remember this challenge being around 11 o'clock at night or so, at least Central Time, at least by the time the tiebreaker ends. And you think you're done for the day, but that would be wrong because the
Yeah.
day isn't over yet. You have your final immunity challenge, Lay of the Night. This is the iconic hands on the idol. You versus Braden versus Jamie. Who wants it more? How was this for you? Because this was part of the not sleep marathon you were engaging in.
Yeah, like we were done. I mean, we had already had four challenges, I think, that day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, four challenges, four tribals. Like, so you're done. You're mentally done with all the talking and back and forth you're doing with everybody. And I think, and we had also like gone to bed. Like, I think Jamie was asleep already. Um, so we were just assuming,
Mm-hmm.
okay, final challenge in the morning. I think we all thought we were able to be at the campsite longer that day as well before checkout time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so we weren't expecting it. Yeah, so it was around midnight I think that we started, or midnight Pacific time, um, that we started, and it was just I don't know. It was invigorating because it's like, man, I'm actually at like the final immunity challenge. But at the same time, I would have rather just done it in
Mm-hmm. So, did you feel confident at this point that both of them were taking you?
the morning. Braden for sure I was. Um, Jamie, Jamie, I thought would take me because I would be easier to beat than Braden.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I felt pretty good that Jamie would take me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was, I mean, but I didn't want to be like, Richard Hatch in season one where I was that confident that I
Like,
just
oh, and just say, have fun, y'all.
I wanted to not be the first one off because I wanted more, um, I guess, assurance that they would want to take me. They would want to take me more so because it's like he wasn't the first one at the final
Yeah.
challenge. Like he stuck it out longer than the other person that I'm not taking.
Mm-hmm.
That was just something I really wanted to do for the perception that it would give off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but I was fairly confident that I had a good shot of being brought to the end.
Um,
Obviously, I still wanted to last as long as I could.
so
It would have been
because
nice to have
you
won.
all were on there like for 4 hours or so, right?
Yeah, we were on there for about 4 hours before we moved on to one leg, and then I think we made it 20 something minutes on one leg, so it was almost
Mm-hmm.
4.5 hours.
And so if it was always on two legs, you were just never letting go.
Yeah, it was the middle of the night, so there was one, maybe two production members that were up, just keeping an eye on us because they had to keep an eye on us to make sure we didn't take our hands off or step off our mat or anything. And Gyro was sleeping at this point, and we started saying to Matt, like, man, we can stand here all day, we can stand here all morning, we can stand here till tomorrow night. Like, you got to do something like with us.
Mm-hmm.
And they waited a little while. They didn't want to wake Gyro up because he had only just gone to bed like an hour earlier. But finally, we knew too, like, we were going to have tribal council early in the, like, we still had to get rid of one more person.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had to prepare for final tribal. Like, we knew we weren't going to be sleeping. Like, we wanted to at least just lie down for an hour or two. So we kept pushing them to get Gyro up to make the decision to move on to something wonky. And finally, after 4 hours, they got him up.
What was your pitch to Braden? Well, did you make a pitch that night? Did you make a pitch the next morning? In however many hours of sleep you got?
Yeah, I definitely. I was confident enough that I didn't make nearly as big of a pitch as Jamie did. And it was just kind of like, I told him, I said, I've been with you since the start of this game. It just, a lot of it just had to do with like the openness, the honesty between us, the transparency between us. We kind of like played into the storyline of how cool it would be to have like the oldest person and the youngest person at the end.
Mm-hmm.
It just, I don't know. I kind of tried to set the stage more so as the story, how good of a story it was for the two of us to go to the end. That was definitely part of my pitch. And I told him too, I think he had a much better chance of beating me than Jimmy. He was so certain that he wasn't winning. Like even when the jury was voting, he thought he lost.
So Jamie's voted out. Unanimously, well, 1-0. You are in the final tribal council. They give you a breakfast, which you don't eat the eggs, and you have a little bit of time to compose yourself before the final tribal council. Going in the final tribal council, how did you want to pitch yourself?
I wanted to pitch myself as just as someone who, I definitely, once we hit merge, the type of game I played, very open and honest, straightforward game, which I think is kind of a difficult game to play. And I wanted to talk about how that benefited me. There's a lot of things I wanted to talk about that I couldn't get out. I wanted to talk about, obviously my game was not nearly as visible as Braden's was. Like his game was winning all the challenges and wheeling and dealing with people, playing idols. I had a much more silent game, I think. A lot more behind the scenes stuff. So I wanted to explain a lot of that stuff, which I did not do a good job doing. And I wanted to just talk about the experience that I had out there. Like I wanted to make it very personal for the people that were listening to me talk as well. Because I wanted to talk about it, but also because that kind of helps build a bit of a connection with the person listening as well, and maybe entices them a little bit more to vote for you at the end.
Which jurors did you think you had voting for you, and which jurors do you think you needed the work for?
You know what? Going into it, I honestly didn't think I would even have two.
Really?
I thought I would get Stevie for sure, just because, I don't know, he at least had a bit of a connection with me, and he never really built anything with Braden. Brandon wasn't a surprise. I did think I was going to get Jess, and she did tell me after the game that I did have her vote, and there's something that I said in one of my answers that lost her vote. She was somebody that I thought was a sure vote for me at the end for sure. And Jamie was kind of a 50-50 for me. I didn't really know where he was going to go, and I knew he was going to be all jumbled and messed up too, because you can't really make a sound decision when you just got voted out like an hour earlier, and it's probably pretty overwhelming when you have the whole jury converging on you, asking you questions, and you're trying to get answers yourself for all these things that you don't know what's happened over the course of the week. And I think Stevie and Jess were the two I thought I was going to get.
Did you ever see Jamie's voting confessional in that final travel?
I never did go back and watch it, no.
So Jamie walks in and was like, I'm casting the vote for the winner because it's 3-3 because I'm the last juror voting. So he thought it was tied and he was casting the winning vote. So he had to really deliberate, like, who do you want to win? Because he really did think, I guess, the Jess flip was something he didn't anticipate either.
Yeah, I think if I had done a much better job explaining things at the end, maybe I would have been able to sway Jenny.
Mm-hmm.
I know that we didn't have a great connection. I think when we talked about that with her question, it made sense with the answer. And the acknowledgement I got from her was just like, that totally makes sense. That's why we didn't connect. And she was mad enough at Braden that I think that if I had just done a half decent job, I think I could have maybe got her vote.
Well, in retrospect, is there should you have pitched yourself a different way? Was there any one thing you should have said that would have like changed the jury's outlook on you?
Well, it was just, I mean, like Stevie was the first one to ask a question, and he asked, obviously, like, my game was not nearly as visible as Braden's. Talk about what you did. And I did an extremely poor job doing that. And a lot of it was he was right. It wasn't visible. And I feel like a big part of what I did, I feel like, you mentioned our big group, our red group there at the end. Basically, we get to what, final 6, and it's Andrew, Braden, myself, Jamie, and Jess. So we have the 4 of us there. Like, I don't think the 4 of us from Kwantlen would have made it to final 5 if I had not been a part of that group. And I'm not trying to like hype myself up here or anything. I think that throughout the entire game, and there's a big reason why our group made it to the end, like basically almost completely intact. And I think for the entirety of the game, I was just the sound voice. I kept everybody on the straight and narrow. Like people weren't talking to me as far as the people in the opposing tribes. So I kind of just hang out at the tribe, and Jess would come back and tell me something that she just had with this discussion, and maybe she's upset about something that went on. So she'd confide some stuff into me, and I'd make her feel better. I'd offer some differing opinion on something. Now Jamie's going to come back, and Jamie's losing his mind because he's heard this and he's heard that and he's heard this over here, and now he's thinking that all these other different things are going to be happening that weren't even being talked about. So it was just like a lot of like just keeping people grounded and keeping people on task, and I feel like I don't know, at least I feel like I did that a lot with people, and I think that the game would have gone a different way at different points with different actions people would have taken if I wasn't around to keep us on the path that we needed to take to get ourselves to the end. I think that was a very big part of my game.
So you were the glue really for your alliance that kept your alliance together and intact and moving forward.
I was, and like I was never anybody's like number one ally. Maybe closer to the end, a few people might have felt that way about me. But I do feel like I that I played a very important part in getting all of us that far to the
end. One thing I think that's interesting about your game, and that maybe something else that could have come with the tribal council, is that you took a lot of risks in your game, right? You took risks and disadvantages really in order to get the disadvantage action. You took disadvantages in order to get the mutiny, and your advantages had a sway in the game itself. And I think I remember watching, I was like, oh, he really needs to sell this, right? They're saying like, what are your moves? You're like, well, I did all these risks in order to get these things that keep my line stack, propel myself forward, and it paid out dividends. I remember really hoping to hear you talk about that more.
That's exactly stuff that I just didn't talk about. I was completely brain dead, and that's like just the stuff like the mutiny, like the legacy mutiny advantage. Everything that I did was for the good of my alliance and the good of my tribe, and it was to benefit us and keep us safe. And when I used it, it was to the benefit of a certain group of people. And and taking these risks too. It's fun. It makes you stand out more in the game to the viewers and to production. So I enjoy that. But it's just, I don't know. I didn't want to play. I know that I played an honest and a straightforward game, so it wasn't risky in that sense. But it was fun to take the risk in the other sense, because I really felt like I got to take part in every aspect of this game. Like the number of times I got to go to Island of the Ages and successfully win things there, successfully play disadvantages,
Hmm.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun taking those risks, and that's something you can, that I should have been talking about at the end too. Like that's something for your resume. Is I took all these risks to help these people
Hmm.
get far and to help myself get to the end.
Hmm. So, looking back at your game, do you look and find like are there key moments you wish you acted differently or did something else?
It's hard to say because I mean, I got to the end,
Hmm.
playing the way that I did. Um, I think of different scenarios that could have happened, different things that could have played out of certain things. If Jamie or I had won a particular immunity advantage or individual immunity, and we got Braden out, um, would I have done a better job against Jamie at the end or Jess at
Hmm.
the end? So there's really nothing that I wish I'd done differently. There's definitely like I talked about how I wish I had been more social at the start and all that, but there's nothing that I would change that I did in the game. Um, it was an awesome experience. I loved every moment of it, everything that I got to do. So no, I wouldn't change anything.
Well, to wrap things up, I have a couple of just rapid fire questions that throw at you, just kind of get your sense of things, and then we'll call it a 2 hour and 10 minute interview. So, favorite challenge?
Probably the one with the domino stacking, just because the other tribe had put me on it, hoping
Mhm.
that I would not do well, and and I kind of showed them up on that one. So that one, I enjoyed that one.
Favorite camp life moment?
The little bit of downtime that we would have, there was a lot of just like impersonations and impressions that we would do, or a few member of production if they were around that they would do, and just like reenacting stupid things from movies or sports, things that I would probably not enjoy sitting around doing in regular life, but it was a lot of fun doing that
What was your lowest moment in the game?
there. Probably when I was eating barbecue sauce off of a saltine cracker, thinking that was the best thing that I was eating that week.
Highest moment?
Uh, I think when I got to that when the final immunity challenge started and three of us were standing there in the middle of the night, just thinking like, you know, all three of us really wanted to make it to the final episode whenever these get edited,
Hmm.
the episodes, and just to be like, wow, God, we actually made it here, and like I'm in the final immunity challenge. And this is one that maybe I actually have a chance to win. So
Hmm.
just the fact that I was there at that point in the game, I was totally stoked.
Hmm. Um, who surprised you the most?
Um, I'd say Jamie. I just think I don't know. I mean, like he kind of taught. He was very self-deprecating at the start, uh, especially about like stuff that his friends would say about him before he go
Hmm.
out there. How he has no survival skills and stuff like that. So I was just surprised with how well he adapted with the outdoorsy stuff, with how he kind of talked about himself, but also how he dealt with the actual game and everything going on in the game while dealing with the elements and no food and no sleeping bags.
Who do you wish you worked with but didn't?
Uh, I would say Stevie. There was the hope there for us to do something, and it just didn't work out. But I think we both genuinely did want to work with each other.
Hmm.
So I would say Stevie for
Braden votes you out, and you have to cast a vote for Jamie or Braden to win. Who do you vote for?
that. I'd go for Braden.
And finally, would you play another live reality game?
I would. Absolutely, I would. I think it would be very different for me. Like this one, I kind of in Final Tribal. I talked a lot about what I went through with different realizations I came to when I was out there. So I think it would be a very different game for me. But I had a great time. I went out there and it came along at a perfect time in my life with how things had been for me. Things had just been very cloudy for a long time, I guess would be the best way to describe it. And after I made it through that first night, just lying on the dirt, shivering, waiting for the sun to come up, like I knew at that point that I could weather any storm. And I just started thinking about, even with those clouds there, like there's still blue sky above the clouds, right? You just gotta get to that blue sky. So I've come home with a new outlook on a lot of things. This was awesome. So I'd play again, and I encourage anyone else that's thinking about playing one to play one.
Well, is there anything else you want to talk about your time, your experience with Survivor PC?
Nothing else. No, I think that we've been on here for long enough right now. So.
Well, everyone who's been listening, thank you so much for taking your time to tune in to Will talk about his game. This is not the last Survivor BC interview. There'll be more that come next week. Hopefully we'll talk to Jen and someone else. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Survivor BC will be having more content soon as well. So they dropped the trailer to season 6, which I play and unfortunately don't play very well on. But if you want to watch some good game players and some bad game players, like, you get excited because it's coming your way. And yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in, and you'll hear back from us soon.